Where's the 2.0 version of your product? Now at the moment I am going back through a course I made a couple of years back, which was on how to create colouring book images. So it was for low content book creators, and in that course I showed them how anyone could create colouring book images even if they couldn't draw to save their life. Now as time's gone on, I have learned a few things since now, and I've come up with a few techniques. I've come upon a few pieces of software and a couple of websites that are really helpful to that audience, and I didn't know about them at the time. So now I am going back into that product and I'm doing the 2.0 version of it, where I am adding all that additional content, all the additional resources and things that I have learned back then that I'm going to add to it. Now, why don't you do the same with your books and your products? There's no reason why you can't do that as well. Now, for a lot of us, sometimes when we are creating content, we automatically assume that we need to come up with something new. We need to write another book, we need to write another blog post, or whatever. Maybe we need to create a brand new video training course or whatever. But sometimes what you can do is you can actually go back into content you've already created before and give it a little bit of spring clean, add additional resources and things like I had mentioned earlier on to that product. Or again, the person you could be right now could be completely different than the person who created that first product. So maybe in the early days, I know even my own early training courses, sometimes I cringe when I listen to myself talking because I sound all nervous, I don't seem to know what I'm talking about, and I'm stumbling through it, and sometimes maybe I'm speaking too fast. But I know if I go back to that course again, I'm a completely different person than I was back then, so this video course should be a lot better. So what I'm saying is, whatever you have today at the moment, there could be a 2.0 version of your product that could be a lot better than the one you have out there at the moment. If you're someone who has a video course, have you come upon some new resources, something that you didn't know before, maybe some new techniques, or maybe some of those websites that you had originally sent people to, maybe they don't work anymore. Maybe they used to be a free version and now all of a sudden they're a paid version. So maybe those techniques and those things aren't as good as they used to be. But I'm sure maybe since you've created that last thing, you probably have some additional things. Now, even a fiction author can actually do a 2.0 version of their book. Now, even though you mightn't want to mess with the manuscript, maybe you have written a story, you have it all finished off, it's edited, it's kind of, it's proofread to an inch of its life, so it's perfect, and you just don't want to touch it. I can totally understand that. But the rest of the book you can actually tinker around with. Now, one of the things you can do which could make a big difference and is very easy to do, it's something I mentioned in an episode a couple of episodes back, and it's on pre-framing your content. Now, as you're probably well aware, if you buy maybe a book from maybe on weight loss or something like that, or you buy a book maybe by some well-known author or some well-known trainer, say for example maybe Tony Robbins or something like that, when you do get to his book, the first couple of pages are usually filled up with pre-framing content, in that you will get a lot of testimonials, you'll get a lot of reviews, you'll get a lot of introductions from famous people who have who Tony has helped in their lives, or done something for them. So by the time you come to Tony's content, the main kind of meat of the book, you're already pre-framed to see that in a positive light, because you have gone through all those amazing testimonials and good words and all those things that those people have said about him. But there's no reason why you can't do that same thing with your fiction book, in that you could maybe get some reviews that were positive reviews, or somebody was really impressed by your book, and have all of that at the additional kind of front matter of your book before somebody actually gets into your story, in that they are pre-framed to see your book in a positive light. That they will say, well, a lot of people seem to enjoy this book, so I'll probably enjoy it as well. So that's something you could do, maybe to bulk out the front part of your book. And then as for the back matter of your book, maybe your business has changed a lot since you originally wrote that book. Maybe you might have an author website by now. Maybe you have copped on, maybe a little bit too late, but maybe you have copped on to the idea of capturing your readers' email addresses. And maybe you have a new page set up on your website that has an opt-in box, maybe you're giving away a free report or a free short story or something like that, and now you are finally collecting those email addresses. this would be a good time to go back to your older books and, bulk up that back matter with the domain name where you are right now, maybe your social media links to your platforms, or maybe if you are offering a free book or something like that, get that into that book now as soon as possible, and then re-release it again or upload it again, so that from today onwards the new people who will be downloading that new book or reading it maybe as a paperback will see those links. They will find out about your mailing list or whatever. That could be a good way of maybe updating the back matter of your book, or maybe adding maybe some QR codes on it. So for example, if somebody is on maybe a paperback, you could have maybe a QR code set up on one of the back pages, or even coming up to maybe the introduction or something like that, you could have the QR code set up on it, so somebody can scan your paperback book with their mobile phone, and then they can go directly over to your website and fill out the opt-in box, or maybe collect a free story or whatever it is. Something like that you could consider doing. Or another thing you could do too is, depending on your age, maybe if you are from the digital era where everything has always been digital, you've always known MP3s, you've always known digital downloads for videos and all that. There used to be a time when we used to get movies on discs called DVDs. Now, you may have heard of those before, but one of the things that you would find used to come out sometimes was that Hollywood would come out with the original screening of the DVD, and then maybe in a couple of years time you might get maybe some kind of maybe director's cut which had extended pieces put back in again, or you might find maybe that at the end of the movie you would have additional content, like you got maybe an interview with the director, maybe an interview with the actors, maybe a kind of behind the scenes where you're seeing the special effects, you're seeing maybe how they created the costume, how they created the worlds, and all that different stuff that you probably weren't aware of. And even though you might have seen the movie before, if you were a big fan of it, there is probably a good chance you would go out and buy the director's cut, because there's scenes in that film that weren't there originally there, and then you have all the commentary from the directors and all the different kind of bonuses as well too. So there's no reason why you can't do a 2.0 version of your fiction book, in that if you have a following, there's no reason why you can't kind of open up to them, do a couple interviews where you're speaking about the book, how it came about, how you came up with the characters, how the storyline went this way or that way, why did this character disappear, or why did this character maybe change his personality, or all those different things that your reader might be wondering about when they're reading all that, whatever world you have created for them. They may be coming up with all those questions and not knowing, and this could be your chance maybe of explaining all that, explaining how the book came together, explaining maybe where you were taking the book series from today onwards, maybe making them aware of new releases. But you could have all that additional content. Again, you could have that locked away on a page on your website where you're just kind of speaking to camera, or you could have maybe a little bit of a kind of secret members area where only people can pick up a short story that's maybe based on a character in the book, or maybe a character in the book kind of went off on some kind of mission. You didn't see him for half of the book and he came back again, and there was no real mention of what happened when he was away on that venture, and you could have maybe a short story that could maybe tie in nicely with your fiction book. So the person then reading the fiction book will then know exactly when that character left chapter 3. They can go into the short story and they can see exactly how they got on, and then they can follow them back into chapter 10 or wherever else they come back into the main book again. So you could do something like that. You could do some maybe short stories. I even see Lee Child at the moment has gone back into Jack Reacher and gone back into kind of Jack Reacher's early days by creating short stories. Again, you could do something like that too if you have maybe a character that is well liked. Could you maybe go back into the past history, maybe use some of that research that you've already put together to create that character, and just kind of flesh it out and put a couple of stories around it. So that could be an additional thing you could do, some kind of DVD extra like that, where you are taking the reader behind the curtain and you're showing them what you're up to, how the book came about, and additional content as well too. And especially too, maybe if you are someone who is selling something like sci-fi or fantasy or something like that, maybe you got a great illustration done for your book cover, maybe you have a great illustration of a ship on the front page of your book. You probably have the original version of that image without all the name, without all the text, and you could offer that maybe away as a free download or something like that to the reader, so they can print off a big picture of that spaceship that's featured in their favourite book, and then they can hang it on their wall or whatever. So think about what you have created at the moment. You have probably changed since you have created it. You know, as I said, you probably have learned things. Some of the stuff you had originally talked about maybe aren't working anymore, so you can come up with maybe some new additional resources. Again, too, even for bloggers, I'm sure there's many blog posts you could probably go back to today that probably has screenshots of some platform that has completely changed. So maybe the images or the screenshots on that blog post aren't relevant anymore because the platform has completely changed, and somebody going over to that platform now will see it in a completely different way than the way you have it done. So why don't you go back over that platform and take some fresh screen capture images of how the platform looks now, and explain then how the person can, you know, get around it when maybe they were lost before. So have a look at whatever content you have. Again, you've changed, things have changed, whatever processes have changed. Maybe you know a lot more than you did back then, and this could be a way for you to freshen up that content, add additional things into it, and do the 2.0 version of your product. So why not give that a go today rather than coming up with something original. Again, if you have an audience that kind of likes all your stuff, they will lap up the additional, you know, free resources, whatever stories or whatever you're going to come up with. I'm sure they will love it. So give that a go if you are looking to come up with some ideas today. And again, it could make your product far better than the original one. So as always, if you'd like to find more of this content, if you are on YouTube, hit the bell and I will send the next couple of videos to you. Or if you're listening to this as a podcast, subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from, and again, I'll send all the next couple of episodes directly onto you. Or if you'd like to go over to the WriteCome site, which has a load of self-publishing courses, not only on low content books, but I do fiction courses and everything else. And if you'd like to pick up a few of them, or you'd like to know more about me, head over to WriteCome and you'll find all the information there. So as always, have a great day and thanks for your time. Bye bye.